Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Chris and Mark back on a Monday night asking the same question we ask every Monday night. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on, Mark. It was a nice bank holiday weekend until Newcastle turned up and put in that performance. That's the second week in a row I've seen an ugly game, so ugly it could be in Cinderella. It's that horrendous, mate. Alongside the other South Coast ugly sister, the Southampton game. What's going on with you, mate?
Yeah, you need to move the teams a little bit further north, I think, from now on, just to get, start to see some performances, because that again didn't fill anyone with much hope. I don't think.
No, it's weird as well. I mean, we're going to get right into this tonight, guys, but I've started to sense a feeling in the fan base I haven't felt for nigh on 3 years now, and it's a feeling of doubt, it's a feeling of negativity, it's a feeling of concern. And these were the feelings that we associated with the old Newcastle under the old regime, and are starting to creep back in, and it is not good at all. It's a huge week for the football club, and they really need to do something to restore some confidence in the fan base. But we're going to get stuck right into that tonight, guys, amongst everything else. As we always say before we do, if you're just joining us for the first time, good evening to you. We're not normally this negative, to be honest with you, but we do have a few things to talk about tonight, which won't be particularly great, but we will do it on our own at Evermore way. But if you haven't already, smash that button, subscribe. We'd love you to come and join us. We're over 8,400 subs now. Loads of room for you in Evermore. Recommend us to family and friends. It's all free to watch us. If you do want to subscribe to be a membership, there is an option down there, so you get early access to videos and some goodies coming up. We're going to cook some stuff up in the Evermore lab for you in the months to come. But yeah, we'd love to have you on board. We are live tonight as well. There's a lot using the comments already. We'll get into your comments in a minute. We're not one of those channels that ignore you. We always try and put your comments and engage with you. If you've taken the time to type it, we will take the time to pull it up and talk to you about it. So there is only one place to start, mate, isn't there? And that's Rotten Cherries, we've called it. I did my post-match analysis of this, so I had a good old rant about this, mate. But this is where Mark's normally the voice of reason, but I have a feeling he might agree with me tonight. How did you find that game at the weekend, mate? What was your initial thoughts of it? Starting with selection, I suppose. We'll get into selections in a minute, but how do you feel we set up, and how do you feel we handled that game?
It's an odd one, isn't it? Because the conversation we had early game, and the whole leaving Lewis Hall out and playing Kelly, and then I think the prompt of the conversation was you sent me a text saying what's the long throws? Are we stuck? And I sort of think, well, the back four of Bournemouth isn't particularly tall, and Kelly and Byrne are taller than them. So have they identified a way to kind of attack that? But that was it. I thought, if you go for free kicks and playing for corners, set pieces, throw-ins, that sort of thing, and you can identify an area to attack, fine. I sort of understand that method with it. But it didn't look like that after that first throw, and I think they completely went the other way. And I just lost. I think there was a loss of, and I will come to the word progression in it, but I thought there's a massive loss of progression in the way that Newcastle set up. I thought Lewis Hall not being on the field meant that it was a very, very defensive setup. It reminded me a little bit where you hadn't got that balance fullback, so it goes back to last season where Trippier's on the right and Byrne tucks in, and you end up with a three at the back, and I don't think that was a wise sort of way to handle certainly Semenyo. I thought that was, if that was the initial look, because I did look at the way that they sort of set up at times, and Kelly looked to have tucked in, but then equally he seemed at parts to push forward further than Livramento as well. So it was a strange, almost unthought through setup. It was an odd way, and I don't think they did anything to kind of prevent the major threat from Bournemouth, and that comes down that right hand side. And I think the pace of Hall, I think, probably would have been better suited against Semenyo. I think just the work rate of Joe Linton down that side as well to enable, give him some support. I don't think it was set up particularly well in that regard either. And again, it was just, and we talked about this last week, it was a tough watch again. It was a real tough watch for a good 60-odd minutes. It was a grind. It really was.
It was definitely. We got a super chat in from Sean 999. Thank you so much for that, Sean. We really appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much. Yeah, I thought it was negative, Mark. I said that at the start. There was a little conflab going on with the Newcastle fans, and you kind of feel the tension is rising a little bit amongst Newcastle fans. I know social media is not a very good barometer to look at how any fan bases feel anyway, really. But you can tell even with selection processes, you've got half of the camp who are so, kind of vehemently in defense of the manager. And then the other half of the camp will go, what the fuck is that? And then the kind of middle of it go, well, we'll see what happens, But the kind of, there is getting a little bit of needle between both sides of the fan base now. I've started calling them the TTP crew, trust the process, where they are getting a little bit too crazy about this whole thing. Because let's call a spade here, right? One of Eddie Howe's biggest problems last season was his over loyalty to players who, although they've got character in abundance, their ability as players is limited. And if you want to climb up the table in the Premier League and you want to finish in a higher position, get in the Champions League, you want to try and win trophies, you have to have your best players on the park. And we said this before, Mark, before we come on, you have to have your best footballers on the park. You can't have them sitting on the bench. We're not Manchester City. We can't have a £38 million player on the bench, and then bring them on to change a game when we're chasing it. And that's exactly what happened again at the weekend. And, the defence thing, the reason I found it so negative is because I looked at Bournemouth and I thought, yes, they've got some good runners in their team. Semenyo looks like he's a good player. Evan Neeson was a pain in the arse up front. He was a bit like a wasp at a picnic. Christie's a bit of a shithouse. So is Tavernier in midfield. But I just felt if Lewis Hall had started, as you say, Mark, his pace, his overlap, his ability to put the ball in and put it down the channels as well. We saw that when he come on.
Yeah.
From Isak making those runs and Barnes making those runs. If Hall had started that game, I think Bournemouth would have been more worried about Hall going the other way than we would have been about him dealing with Semenyo. And I mean, we didn't get that from Tino. Tino was disappointing as well. I mean, we'll get right to it, Mark. I mean, we'll cover it in the post-match, but we can criticise the manager for the starting 11. The long throws I don't get. It was very Tony Pulis-esque. It made me kind of sick in my mouth a little bit watching that 2 minutes into a game, thinking, what the fuck is going on here? It's not the cup final. And then I must admit as well, listen, I know he's got cult status, but Mad Dog, your set plays are shit, mate. Just put the ball in the fucking box. How many times have we seen these set pieces go to shit? They're not very good. I mean, the substitutions changed the game really, Mark, didn't they? I mean, in particular, the two big players, and there was loads of spotlight on them, for on the pitch and off the pitch reasons, and Kieran Trippier. But I felt when he come on, even after looking like he was having a nervous breakdown on the sideline with his head in his hands, which was not a good look at all, because I thought, my God, this guy doesn't look like he wants to be here at all. And then he comes on the pitch and he's just that Kieran Trippier, that calm and presence, that class, that leadership, that professionalism. And I think him and Barnes, within seconds, mate, they were brilliant. So why didn't they start the game? That's my question.
I mean, I guess with Trippier to a point, you can sort of understand. I don't think Livramento did anything wrong last week. I don't think there was any need to have changed that. Yeah. I just think the way that the setup was hurt Livramento's ability to get forward. He was very much playing as a 4. It felt very 4-4-2 a lot of the time. The way that Newcastle set up with a 4 across the back, not in a direct line, but it felt much deeper than they would normally do. But Barnes, for me, Barnes showed in that 33 minutes or whatever it was, he has to play, and you have to. You said the line on Sunday. It says you put the best players out on the field, and the best players up front are Barnes, Isak, and Gordon, and you play them. And yes, it might move around, and they become a little bit more fluid. But you play Barnes left, you play Gordon right, and you play Isak through the middle. I know that's not Gordon's preferred position. He wants to come in from the left hand side, but the team is what counts, and he has to be there, and he has to be backed up down that left hand side by Lewis Hall, because I just think he gives absolutely the best option down that side. I don't think there can be an argument for that now.
No, absolutely no doubt about it at all. I'm just waiting for you to finish there. This was the picture of Kieran Trippier, if anyone didn't see that. I don't know what was going on there, because his head was in his hands for a long time. He looked really upset, and I was wondering about his mentality when he came on. But my God, he didn't half show that. But that was just obviously maybe an unfortunate timing of the camera. But you're right, Mark. I think the big thing for me, got to give a shout out to Joe Willock as well. I thought he looked sharp when he come on, he looked lively. We're going to talk about Sean in a minute. Sean has again gained focus, and this is not, and let's not beat Sean Longstaff up, exercise, and everybody rallies to the defense of Sean because he's a local lad. He's such a lovely kid. I always caveat it with that as well. He's such a lovely lad. He does loads for the community, and he's a real good role model for the young academy players coming through. But there's times, and a lot of times, that where his limitations as a player stands out for everybody to see, and particularly when Joe Linton's off form like he was on Sunday, and you're looking at the rest of the midfield to carry the load. Bruno was much better, used the ball well, got on it, looked a lot sharper, looked like he hadn't just been on the piss like he did against Southampton and burping up lager or cider in the first 10 minutes, or Kinder Bueno as he likes. But you looked at Joe was so off at the weekend, and very lucky not to be off as well, as I said in the post-match. We'll get to that in a minute. But Sean just didn't do enough, Mark. I think we're going to talk about this, with the news of Tonali's return. But talk about the level of passing that Sean Longstaff did or didn't do in this game. And again, this is not an attack on Sean Longstaff. These are facts. When you're in games like that, where it's a little bit needly, it's a little bit ugly, it's a little bit messy, and you need someone just to do something in the moment, Sean was just found wanting, wasn't he, mate?
Yeah, look, the one thing you don't get from Sean Longstaff is ability on the ball, and that's clear. You get the effort, you get the running, you get if the press is on, he'll do it. But what you don't get is that ability on the ball. He doesn't have many passes during the game. He doesn't really get involved too much in the defensive side of certainly this weekend. He didn't really get involved in the defensive side of things either. If you look at his stats, I think he had 3 ground duels and won 2 of them. Fair enough. You've won 66% of your ground duels, but you're not involved in the defensive side of things. And particularly when Newcastle were under pressure for a good chunk of that time. I'll bring up the pass map and just drop that comment out of the way, because the control index is what I was kind of keen to show on here. Is that game control index at the bottom is the amount of pressure that Bournemouth had at times, and Newcastle had the line shares of possession, but in terms of where the game was played, there's a huge swell of that is in the Bournemouth in attacking areas with that threat against the Newcastle goal, and it wasn't until the changes happened that the game sort of swung the other way. There were fleeting moments of it, but what Sean doesn't do is then progress you out of those problems. If you look at his stats from the weekend, was it two progressive passes from 34? I think it works out
69 minutes.
Yeah, and it's really a theme of his first couple of games this season. 8% of his passes are progressive. They're not being played forward. They're not going and moving the team on in a way that will get them out of trouble. They're not being moved, 10, 20, 30 yards forward by those passes. I think when you look at the way that certainly FB Ref do it, they're progressive. They class completed passes that move towards the opponent's goal at least 10 yards. In that regard, he's not doing that, and it was very telling at the weekend. Those passes were short. The passes were sideways or backwards. He wasn't moving the team on, and he does sit. You look at the players that are listed as midfield, he sits behind an awful lot of players in that regard. He just doesn't give you that. Joe Linton, I think, had 5. Bruno, 14. I mean, he's streets ahead, obviously, in terms of ability on the ball. But the one thing that Sean just doesn't give you is ability on the ball. He's also not, and it might be a victim of the way that these 2 games have panned out. But what you like to see from Sean isn't getting him beyond the forward line. He likes to make those runs in between. Certainly, we've seen it last season. He makes those runs.
He's got that ability. He's got that ability. He's maybe lost the confidence to do it. I don't know why.
But he likes that run in between the fullback and the centre back, and he likes to that ball played in behind to him. We've seen that time and time again. We've not seen him get into those real positions. I think there was one moment where Jacob Murphy hit the ball way too fast for him, but it was never there again. and in his main heat map for the game was halfway inside his own half. But again, if you're in there and you're getting the ball, you have to be looking to progress the ball as a central midfielder, especially as a midfield three. He has to be looking for that, because it can't always be, oh, well, I've got the ball, I'll panic and give the ball to somebody else to play forward. He's got to be better. And I think we'll come to the whole Tonali thing, because I think for me, he walks straight in. He has to.
I totally disagree. I mean, going back, again, Sean wasn't, by any stretch the worst performer at the weekend.
No.
I don't want people to think we're singling Sean out. We're just using it as an example, because you need your midfielders to step up in games like that to win you those games and do something. And we just didn't feel that he was doing something. But it was quite concerning to see Tino Livramento. I mean, some of the guys in the comments have already said, where was Tino in the first goal? I think a couple of comments there that there was a certain immaturity about Tino at the weekend. Yeah. He looked a bit lost positionally. He looked a bit raw. He looked a bit. It's the first time I've watched Tino Livramento since he signed for us, and just thought he looks like a young lad. He doesn't look like he knows where he needs to be or wants to be. And with Trippier come on, I think that level of kind of assurance and understanding of his position and where he needs to be and where he is in relation to getting the ball off his teammates or watching an opponent's run. Tino just didn't seem to have that. I mean, for the goal, he popped off for a fucking 99 pence cheeseburger, I think, from the Mackey's down the road, because I don't know where he was, coming back with a burger in his hand, and then Tavernier tapping the back of the net. But he was really poor most of the game. We didn't get anything out of him really going forward. He was very, very disorganized at the back. I mean, even Lewis Hall, when he come on, looked way better than Tino did in that position. He looked calmer, he looked cooler, he looked more composed, defensively. And I just worry a little bit. I mean, we were all ready to kind of wave Kieran Trippier off, myself included, and say, thanks for everything you've done, Kieran, top lad, all the best, mate, see you later. But I think looking at that at the weekend, it's maybe a timely reminder that, maybe we shouldn't move Kieran Trippier on so quickly. If we're getting another season out of him, does Tino need more time, Mark, to develop into this player that we want him to be? Did we jump the gun a bit after last season and think he was already there? Is he still a bit behind?
He's 21, remember. He's got...
And I'm not saying he's going to be the finished article, but we all thought he was already, is what I'm saying. Did we jump the gun?
I think there's that bias of watching what's in front of you at the time and forgetting the fact that these players, and especially... And Hall's the prime example for that as well, isn't he? Because both fullbacks are under, the 21 and 19.
He's 19. He's 19.
They're going to have, time where they need to still learn their game. And let's not forget that Tino had an awful lot of time out with that bad injury. So he's missed a good chunk of his football education at this level. And it'll come. He didn't have a particularly good game at the weekend. He didn't stink the place out. It was very suspect for that goal. I mean, he's just watched Tavernier walk in behind him and be able to tap that ball in. And it's his, he can see him from a mile off, and he's just, the awareness for him just wasn't there. And again, young player, those things they'll come. They'll make mistakes, and I think this is part of where I think this defense evolves from now. I think people are going to have to be a little bit more patient with those two in particular, and with Botman as well, because Botman's missed a good chunk of his time, and he's still young. So there's going to be growing pains in that. But I think what we've seen from both of them is a huge future, and sometimes you just have to put up with those small mistakes. And yes, they're going to cost goals, and it might cost a game here and there. But he's the future. But I do think, and you maybe he's right. We try to jump the gun and saying, well, maybe Trippier is the right to go. I think the experienced head being there as well, just to help guide him through. And if it means that Tino sits out a couple of games and Trippier plays him, then that might be a good thing for him to still continue his education at that age.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it certainly wasn't a great performance, just a roundup on the game. I think the handball was the big talking point, Mark. And we have kind of looked at a few different permutations. You and I argued about this straight away. Alan Shearer thought it was a handball. We've got a little guideline in a minute to explain why it maybe was a handball. But you're looking at an instant replay there. I mean, for starters, it's dreadful defending by Byrne and Joe Linton. They've just got no idea. He goes in between the pair of them. He goes up for it. Burns kind of got him in a bit of a body lock, both arms linked together, and it hits him on the arm, and it goes straight into the back of the net. Now, by the letter of the law, as you said, Mark, that's a handball, but this one against Manchester City wasn't a handball. So again, it lacks that level of consistency. For anybody listening on the audio, we've just showed the Rodri handball in I think a game very recently. But these are the kind of rules that have been explained as to what's handball and what's not handball. So it's all about the sleeves here, Mark, isn't it? In terms of the arm.
They've kind of done away with the sleeve line, because the sleeve line is confusing as hell, because you can never rig. So this is off the FA's website, and it's all, the shoulder's fine. Anything sort of south of the shoulder, it's all handball. And the rule itself says it's an offence if a player scores a goal in the opponent's goal directly from their hand, or even if accidental, including by the goalkeeper. Well, he's jumped, the ball's hit his arm. It is definitely south of that shoulder. You can see it in the middle of his forearm. It's close. And I differ now.
Very close.
I think at the time in my head, I had the t-shirt line. And if it's the other end, you're screaming that it's a goal. But I think by the letter of the law, based on that image, it's handball, and they've called it right. And absolutely frustrating if you're a Bournemouth fan, but it was done right.
Yeah, well, I think a passion run high at the time, mate, especially the Bournemouth fan. It was in our comments in the post-match. I hope you've calmed down, mate. I had a chamomile tea or something, because you were getting a little bit excited about this whole scenario, man. My man was ready to fight the entire St James's Park crowd when he comes up for the reverse fixture. I'm sure he's calmed down now. Maybe got a bad head this morning, but the other. Yeah, poor Jamie. It's okay, Jamie. We forgive you. But going back to the other token point, and Dan Burn had done this previously. Now Neto pulled off a couple of blinding saves. I think the last time I saw that many saves at Neto, I was there buying a couple of bits of shopping. But when Bruno hit that screamer, that it was destined for top bins, that was a great save he pulled off. He pulled off a few other saves as well. And Dan Burn decided to show a little bit of professional, shithousery, which was he's learned obviously in his progressive steps through the lower leagues up to now. And he kind of body checked the goalkeeper, got a yellow card, stopped the quick attack, and you thought, you know what, well played, Big Dan Burn. That is clever play. Joe Linton, on the other hand, decided to do something very similar afterwards and decided to practically RKO the fucking goalkeeper by putting his arm around his throat, like you can see in the image here. And if you are listening to the audio, you know what I'm talking about if you haven't seen the replay already. Big question mark. Was Joe Linton lucky not to get a red card?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'll be honest with you. That's endangering a player at that point.
Mate, that's horrendous.
That's if you put it in context, and everybody, well, not everybody, but those are people that like to bring in the whole way, the rugby and football comparison. That's a red card in rugby.
That was so bad.
I'm really sorry, but no, it was awful. I don't know what he was doing. It is a move straight out of something like Mortal Kombat or Streets of Rage or something along those lines. It is unbelievable that he's lost his head to do that. I get getting in the way and stopping the kick and take a yellow card at that point, but that is how that. I'm amazed he got away with that. I really am.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard Bruno shout "finish him," and that's the reason that he did it in the middle of the fire, probably in Brazilian, probably. But very, very lucky. I think Bournemouth can rightly feel a bit aggrieved, from the goal that could have been given on another day, and then obviously the red card as well. But listen, we managed to get out of there with a point, so we are undefeated so far this season. But all of these happy clappers going mad that we're 5th or 6th in the league. Just it's 2 games, guys. Come on, chill your beans. You know what I mean? We've played rubbish against 2 teams on paper. We should have probably beat, quite more comfortably than that. Even if we'd won them games 1-0, but we had a command and performance and they dug in deep, you would have felt more confident. But I don't feel particularly confident at the minute. I don't think anybody feels particularly confident at the minute. We've got a big cup game coming up, and the return of a certain Italian stallion. So that moves me nicely into the next section, Mark, selection questions. Now, we'll just park the Italian stallion for a minute. So we've kind of talked about this already. If there was ever another reminder as to what the strongest front three is, it was that at the weekend with Harvey Barnes coming on, Isak and Gordon. It doesn't matter what side Gordon and Isak play. They're both very talented players. They can drift and interchange sides game to game. How difficult would that be for an opposing defence if them two kept switching sides? Eddie Howe seems to be obsessed with playing, a right footer on the right side, a left footer on the left side, and not having them have the ability to interchange. Now, this whole Jacob Murphy thing, I said it at the post-match, he's a lovely lad, he's juicy, he waves, he's great on the, the social media and the club channel things and all that. And he seems like a great character, he really, really does, but as a footballer, I think I text you in the middle of the game when he did the most Jacob Murphy thing. He got the ball, dropped the shoulder, beat three men and passed it totally out of play. Just when it was easier to pass to one of his fucking teammates. And it was the most Jacob Murphy thing I've ever seen. And that's the reason why he shouldn't start games. He should come off the bench and run at people who've got tired legs and give all that endeavour that he does. But you would far rather, Mark, start with the notorious BIG, as somebody called him in the comments. I know Craig Hope nicknamed him that. You'd rather start with goals, pace, quality, and go 2 or 3-0 up. I think it was Toon Leroy's just jumped back in with the notorious there. But you'd rather play with those three and get comfortably ahead in the game and then make the changes. Surely, why is Eddie persevering with this? Is this loyal, steady Eddie again? That we're used to seeing. I'll just pick the lads that I trust and I like, and they're great characters and all that stuff. And rather than the quality, is this where Eddie Howe needs to improve as a manager more than ever?
I think there's always been a little bit of certainly the last season, there's that loyalty to players, isn't there? And he served them well, so he's not willing to move away from them immediately.
Because he trusts them, doesn't he? That's the big thing. He trusts them. Yeah.
But are they now showing enough to warrant that trust long term? And I don't think so. Certainly up front, I think the dynamicness, that if that's even a word, that you get from Barnes, Gordon, and Isak. I said this earlier, that they have to be your three up front. And I know it's not particularly Gordon's preferred position, but he showed with his goal, his movement's good enough to come from either side. He'll get on the end. That ball across from Barnes was brilliant. And he gets on the end of it and tucks it away nicely. And that's exactly what you want. You want the movement from those front three. You want the ability to come inside, go outside, to put the ball in. You don't get the quality with the other two on the right-hand side, with Murphy or Almiron. They're just not good enough to maintain a level of performance that gets you to where you want to be. And if the ambition is to be hitting that top 4, 5, 6 this season, they're a million miles away from it. Eddie Howe has improved them massively, but they've reached their peak. They've had that moment. Certainly with Almiron, he peaked massively 2 seasons ago. He had that purple patch and he reverted to type. He's a hard worker. He will always put in 100%. You can't knock him for that, but he's just not good enough long term to play that position. And I don't think as good of a bloke as Jacob Murphy is, he's not equally. He's just not good enough at that level.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you need characters like that in your squad. You need characters who are happy to be in and out of the team and play when they need to. They'll put in as much effort against Barnet away in the FA Cup than they would do against Manchester City, St James's Park. And you can't underplay the value of those kind of players in your squad, but not in your starting 11. This is the bit that worries me about Eddie Howe. And I think Darren said before that he's told Craig Hope he won't start the pair of them. Now, that could just be mind games because he has started the pair of them before. But the problem with Eddie, these were one of Eddie's biggest problems last season. You think about Dan Burn at left back. You think about Sean Longstaff in midfield when they were having stinkers. Even Trippier, when his legs were going and he was getting caught out of position and making big mistakes, he wouldn't make those changes until it was too late. And then it was almost like the pressure forced him into making the changes, and we went a little run and we started to win games. And this is the concern with Eddie is his over loyalty and stubbornness towards these players going to be his downfall? Inevitably, we've said it so many times, but going to the big talking point, Mark, he's back now. Sandro Tonali is back and he's available to play football. We are going to talk and do the preview for the cup game, which I'm fucking petrified at, because I know Elliot Anderson looked really busy for Forest the other day, and I'm petrified he's going to get a goal, his first professional goal against us in this cup game. I hope it's not the winner. But you said there, Mark, big call. Sandro Tonali for you goes straight back in the team. I think he'll start against Forest. I'll be shocked if he doesn't. Because if you look at the players that Eddie isn't playing, we should be able to feel quite strong 11 against Forest in the cup. They might make some changes. They might hold some players back and concentrate more on the Premier League. But for us, I think we'll go at this with quite a strong lineup. And if Sandro plays and he looks good, would you start him against Spurs as well?
Yeah, but he's had an awful lot of time out, as we know. That's the most obvious thing I've ever said in the world. But the look of it has been the fact that he's been able to train with the squad, the fact that he's been with them, day in, day out for the last year. So he knows the systems, he knows the manager, he knows the players around him. I think absolutely he has to come in and look, if the minutes are in his legs, and there's no reason to say why they shouldn't be, because he hasn't played football properly for a year. Now, granted, that will take away some of his match sharpness, but there's no reason to suggest why he couldn't start both on Wednesday and at the weekend.
Interesting. Yeah. Sorry, mate, go on. Finish your point. What are you saying?
No, just purely internally because of that. And he just gives you so much more quality than Sean does. That's not arguable, really, is it? I mean, there is no comparison between the two in their ability with a football.
With all due respect, I think I've seen your podcast flick something forward more than Sean Longstaff flicks the ball forward, in all fairness. But just looking at Liam's comment there, it's an interesting question. I'll answer this one first. In your opinion, was it selling ASM a mistake? No, it wasn't a mistake to sell ASM, because I don't think he had the discipline to play in this Eddie Howe lineup long term. I think he would have got bored of tracking back, and especially in a game like Bournemouth, he wouldn't have kept shape. He would have said "fuck it," but he might have dropped a shoulder, skinned 4 players, and rattled in the top corner and got you the win. But Eddie would have been mad at him for breaking rank. The biggest mistake I think we made was if you were looking for balance in a left footer on the left side and a right foot on the right side, why didn't we go and spend 38 million quid on a right winger, not a left winger? Why did he go and get Harvey Barnes that played in the same position as Anthony Gordon, when he could have had somebody over on the right-hand side? I know Maxi was leaving, and Maxi kind of played there as well, didn't he really? But Maxi was such a live wire, could have played anywhere. So I suppose, I don't think it was a mistake, Mark, but maybe in hindsight, should they have bought a right winger for 38 million quid, a game-changing right winger instead of Harvey Barnes?
Yeah, there's an argument to that. I mean, Harvey Barnes I think he's one of those players when he that sort
excellent player, by the way. Excellent player. I was happy with signing him, no doubt.
And I think the return you get from him and the ability to move around with the other two, particularly, that means that he's worth that money. Now, time will tell, but he scores an awful lot of goals. So it's difficult to pass up a player like that when they become available. But I do. I think that there's a huge gaping hole on that right-hand side, and if Gordon isn't going to be the answer down that side, whether that's short-term or long-term, then that hole has to get filled, and maybe that money would have been better off spent there.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think Barnes is still going to come good. I mean, if you look at what he did last season in cameos, his kind of direct play, his ability, his finishing ability was there for everybody to see. And the weekend again, he looked like a proper winger, didn't he? Murphy was just kind of running around, excited, happy to be there with a big smile on his face. Whereas, Barnes was like, right, I'll cut inside, I'll drop a shoulder, and I'll put a ball to the back stick, and I'll set a goal up. Or I'll cut inside and I'll have a shot and test the keeper. And it's just that more kind of belief in his own ability to get those things off. And and he holds the ball a lot better. I've heard a few different people say this as well. I was listening to the True Faith guys earlier, and Alex said it as well. That Longstaff and Murphy just don't keep hold of the ball. They don't recycle the ball well enough. They lose the ball too much, and it doesn't matter how good of lads they are and how canny they are. They don't keep a hold of the football, and it just puts you under more immense pressure. So this whole thing about Eddie won't play Barnes and Gordon together. I think if he doesn't, Mark, I think you're putting necessary pressure on himself. Absolutely, and then just it's a big game against Forest. I know people might not think it is, but it's a huge game. So off the back of those two really uninspiring league performances, if we were to go out of the cup and then get tipped by Spurs on the weekend at home, he's under big fucking pressure then, isn't he?
Yeah, and to be fair, Spurs look deep. I mean, I know they were playing Everton, so it's a difficult one to judge. More on them later.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, Forest aren't playing badly. They I mean, again against Southampton, I think they made worse of it than they probably could have done. They got the 3 points. They've got some good players in that squad still. It's not going to be easy unless they make a whole raft of changes, and their emphasis is really on maintaining their position in the league. But then the weekend comes and Spurs. I mean, we know how Spursy Spurs can be, they could quite easily come up and just be like, right, yeah, we're just going to run riot today, and they've got it in them, and against a makeshift couple of centre backs, a midfield that's not been particularly great so far, Newcastle could struggle. They really could, and they're going to have to be on their game. So the end of this week could be really good, because a good performance in the cup and a win against Spurs at the weekend, and things look much rosier. 2 defeats and things all of a sudden look really, really dark again.
Really, really bleak. I mean, the big thing this week is going to be the transfer, which we'll get onto in a second. We have got comment here, which I'm going to pull up. It also gives me a chance to do an impression of one of our favorite 80s kids villains from the TV show, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because it's Shredder 83. I'll do the Krang, mate. I'll do the Krang. Still don't think Joe Litton is the answer in the middle. Poor ball retention, distribution, and is not press resistant. Best performances came on the left for me. It's weird because Joe did do some good things on the left-hand side. There's no doubt about that. I think he has had some barnstorming performances in the middle of the park. But the drop-off from Joe against Southampton, Joe against Bournemouth was night and day, wasn't it really, Mark? I mean, that he needs to find a level of consistency in the middle where he's all right rather than just either really good or shite. He's got to find that level, isn't he, quick?
Well, he's gone from a 9, 10 out of 10 performance last week to a 4 or 5 out of 10 this week, to be fair, because he was pretty poor for a huge chunk of time on Sunday. The booking aside, he doesn't fill you with confidence on the ball. Yes, he does he does his defensive work well. He's big, he's strong, he's always going to battle. He'll win his duels. He's good in the air, that sort of thing. But you give him the ball on the deck at times, and rabbit in headlights at times springs to mind, because he's not the most confident. You can tell he's a converted player. He's not a natural central midfielder. Yeah. He's done a terrific job. Don't get us wrong. I mean, we'll still sing Kieran Clark's praises for getting himself sent off and turning Joe Linton into the player he is now. But I do think he's lost a little bit of what made him great that first period, because he doesn't have his mate to swap with further forward, and that interplay between him and Joe Willock down that left hand side, and the way they were able to swap and change, where a game developed, they would just move. The game at St James's against Villa was a perfect example of that, where they started one way around and then swapped. And Joe Layton came back into the midfield from playing further forward and just bossed it. And he's able to bully players in that regard. But there are games that pass him by, and he does look he does look like the converted midfielder. He's not the natural fit, and again that comes back, I think, to the lack of ability the opposite side of midfield from Sean, and the fact that he's asked probably to do a little bit more than he maybe has to, because you don't get the ability on the ball from Sean. But Tonali in there, and it frees up, I think, Jolit to play a little bit more further forward.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, a lot of pressure already on Tonali's shoulders before he's even kicked the ball. But I think he'll be chomping. He'll be chomping at the bit to do something anyway. Now, the big thing this week is the transfer windows. The transfer window shuts obviously this week. I think it's is it Thursday night, 11 o'clock. I think it is. The transfer window shuts. Our friends at the Toon Review, I think, are doing a mammoth 12-hour charity show. So, well, you guys watch them anyway, but if you don't, check it out, because it's all for a good cause as well. And the guys are doing a mammoth task there of being on for so long. So definitely check those guys out. But going to the transfer window itself, Mark, we've got a comment there about Mark Gay. I'm just going to try and get back to there. Yeah, so it's from, is it Turpy Balboa? Does Gay come in and do massively better than Cher? Not really. Would say Chiesa, if he can stay fit. We've got something on Chiesa in a minute. Gives us more than Miggy or Murphy. Massively, what are we doing? The Gahey thing, for what it's worth, Mark, I think that will get done. We put a poll out on Twitter. I don't know what the current count is of the poll, if you want to quickly check it while I'm rambling. So we asked the question as to whether we would sign a centre-back and right winger, or neither. And you could tell the mood of the fan base, because a lot of people put neither, so they're obviously flatter than a pancake. But I think we'll get Gahey in for the 70 million quid that's been quoted. But the Chiesa thing is nuts, Mark, because this came out before, and you were quick to point this out. Fabrizio Romano putting this news out there, and a few other people have jumped on it. Apparently, Liverpool have made contact with Federico Chiesa as an option over the last few days, and the transfer fees either 11 or 12 million for a 26-year-old Italian international, who's played loads of Serie A games, loads of goals, loads of assists, and it's good enough for Liverpool. But for some of our fan base, it's not good enough to sign this lad. What are Newcastle doing in this wing position here? Are they asleep behind the wheel? I mean, this guy would cost you less than fucking Usala did from Sheffield United, who hasn't got a goal in 21 games. I can't get in my head around what's going on here. Eddie Howe was asked about transfers. We did a video on it earlier. He was a bit snippy about it. He said, "Oh, well, no, do with me. I don't know what's going on. It's all to do with them." And even the handling of that was a bit poor, really. Like, surely just should have said, "Oh, well, we're working hard. I'm fully behind the board, and I'm sure we'll do what we need to do." Unless he's not confident we're going to do what we're going to do, Mark. It's a fucking mess. I'll draw for breath. What's your take on it?
That was my initial comment to you, wasn't it, about Chiesa? He's good enough for Liverpool, who Champions League football, but not good enough for a portion of the fan. But it does strike me strange, because he's got his injuries, but as Dean puts there, oh, sorry, I've missed the wrong one.
Oh, sorry.
Another couple there jumped in and it's moved up the list.
Yeah.
At that price, I mean,
total no-brainer, man.
11-12 million pound risk. That is not a risk. Had it 30 million, yeah, I get that. I get the argument that that's a risk to take. But for 11, 12, 13 million pound, that's bargain material. And even if it doesn't work, you haven't wasted a lot, but you've shown a little bit more ambition in that.
You'd make your money back on him, because you'd sell him to fucking Saudi the season after for more than that, probably. You know what I mean? It's just fucking nuts. I don't understand what they're playing at. I mean, he would give you quality. He would give you, I tell you something, he wouldn't miss from one fucking yard against AC Milan St James's Park.
You know,
can take that to the bank. I'm not letting that lad off for that. As long as that lad's on this planet, I won't let him off for that. I could be 86 and bump into him and go, "Remember what you missed from 1 yard, you useless bastard. Give me my pills." Walk off at my Zimmer frame at half the speed. But it's just, I don't understand it. There's quality players out there. What are they doing, Mark? The measure of this window will come at the end of this week. As Roger just reminded me, it's not Thursday, it's Friday. Thanks, Roger, 11 o'clock. So he just reminded me there that. But we need Gahey and a right winger in. And if the club don't do it, and Eddie's obviously not happy, if the club don't back him with what he wants, yes, you can turn in the manager, but you got to look upstairs and go, what the fuck are you lot doing? If you're not taking advantage of a deal like
Federico Chiesa for 11 million quid in this market. What are you playing at?
There's a few, isn't there? There's always lots of transfer rumours, and these players end up going somewhere else because there either doesn't seem to be the interest, or
there's a question for you. Fucking hell!
No.
If the answer that is yes, then I'm very worried about Eddie Howe's football and mentality.
It's straight. I mean, even the one Matt O'Reilly today, who's gone to Brighton. I think Brighton have had an absolutely brilliant window so far. And you put on socials earlier on that they've won the window. I think if the window you got a trophy for it, I think they win it hands down. But they're making those moves to bring in those players to they're just, everything seems so slow. There is rumor tonight from one of the guys at the Daily Mail that Mark Gay's, I think it's Sammy Mockbill from the Daily Mail, says that the future set to be resolved in the next 48 hours, following more talks between Palace and Newcastle. These talks have been going on for weeks. In the meantime, teams are starting negotiations and finishing negotiations and bringing players in. I think that one will be helped by the fact that Palace have now been linked with Joe Gomez.
I was just going to say there is that breaking news as well. Yeah, they were looking at Joe Gomez, which could be the Gahey replacement, couldn't it?
It very well could be. And look, I think Gahey comes in. I think initially he's going to be playing left-sided centre back because Cher will come back in following his ban and will slot back in there. I think Gahey will move to the left, and I think he'll be the long-term replacement for Fabian Cher once Botman comes back. But it's just, I say, everything's just been so slow, other than the PSR signings, which were pure panic. I don't know what's gone on, and I don't know whether it is a case of the upstairs of still haven't got themselves together since they've come in. It's taken them a little bit of time to kind of put themselves in a position where they've got the list of players that they want to bring in. But these guys are professional enough that they should already have those databases. We've got them. We've got lists of players to look at and cover and work out. So
it should give you a bell. You could run them through the stat computer and everything. You've got great grids and everything.
If they're watching,
Mitchell out, mate.
I'm available for a fee.
Mitchell, come on, give him a shout. He's got the super duper stat computer. You'd love him.
Happy to help. But it does. It just and it comes back. You've mentioned it. I know others have mentioned it in the comment. Is there a bit of not infighting, but is there a little bit of mistrust from the manager, the way that the club's now been wanting to be run? Is there an argument sort of between the likes of Mitchell and things to what Eddie wants? Are they looking at players that Eddie feels that he can manage, he can coach? It is an interesting sort of question. We don't know. That could be utter bollocks. But the more this goes on, and the lack of any real movement and players that have to come in, because there are gaping holes in that squad still. There are still players in that squad that are nowhere near good enough to play in the top half of the Premier League, and it's still just trundling along. And we'll wait and see how this goes on. And there doesn't seem to be any backup to, well, if one deal doesn't go, the whole thing about Manchester United, well, they weren't focused on one player, they were focused on multiple, and it was big news. We were all going, yeah, because that's how you do transfers. Yeah. Well, suddenly Newcastle seem to be doing it the other way around. They've got one target and that's it, and there doesn't seem to be anything else, and it does make you question the way that part of the operation is being run.
Well, Williams had enough of Eddie already. He's saying the sooner Eddie goes, the better for him, which is, I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite there yet, William, but I'm not going to have a go at you for feeling that way, because I think people are starting to get a little bit depressed. I think the honeymoon period is certainly over, as Ray says there. It's been a depressing window, so slow. And I think this is the problem. I think the Cellar Cup, didn't sell out as quickly. I know there was obviously the worry about the bother and stuff, which didn't help. But I think signings get bums on seats. Look at what Brighton have done. Brighton have had an unbelievable window. I mean, fucking hell, we should have signed their scouting network. I've said that several times. Never mind Mark Gahey. I'd have spent 70 million quid getting the Brighton scouting team on the books because they seem to be able to find players from nowhere, and again, the more you see Minter play well, the more you think that was well right winger there. Why the fuck did we sell him? Why didn't we try and sell some of this deadwood? Even if you got rid of 4 of them for the 30 million quid figure that you were looking to achieve to balance the books. You could have kept Minter and it would have been better. You could have sold Fraser and Hayden and Longstaff, maybe Almiron. I mean, the whole thing about Miggy Almiron was I honestly don't think they even tried to sell Almiron, and I can't figure out who is the biggest Miggy fan. Is it Eddie or is it Eels? Because Eels loves him because of his marketability in America, and does Eddie love him because he runs a lot for him? And that's the worry, because if people upstairs have got a misconception of a player in terms of their ability, and then the manager has a misconception, as Sergio says there, is it both? And you think to yourself, like, we aren't going to get to that next level unless, you look at Pep Guardiola, right? Pep Guardiola is the best at it. When you play for him, he tells you you're the best player in the world. The minute he doesn't need you anymore, he still tells you you're the best player in the world as he's walking you to the door and then slams it in your fucking face and walks the other way. That's Eddie Howe needs to become like that as a manager. If he wants to be an elite manager, he has to drop the sentimentality. Fergie was ruthless as well. When a player no longer served that purpose for him, poof, they were gone. Jose was the same. And that's why Eddie, at the minute, is not going to get to that next level, as much as he's done a good job. Dan's is saying nobody wants our Deadwood. Somebody somewhere would. They really would. Somebody somewhere would take those players. Maybe we've asked for too high fees, trying to be clever, trying to balance the books, or obviously their wages and stuff like that as well. That's the problem when you sign bags of shite on big money for 5-year contracts. Thanks a lot, Mike Ashley. You're stuck with these motherfuckers, for a long period of time. Chelsea are feeling that now, but the difference is their knackers are on 350 grand a week, not 80 like ours were, but there is a huge rebuild that needs to be done at the football club in this transfer window. But for me, Mark, Gahey has to come in because that area is weak, but the right wing position is even more weak. Now, here's a couple of things to throw at you. So obviously Sandro Tonali coming back is massive. If he comes back and he looks like the Sandro Tonali that played against Villa, then we're laughing because it injects quality into that midfield alongside the other two. It probably raises their game as well. The right-hand side, is Eddie going to swallow his pride and pick the notorious BIG, or even could Willock do a job out there? And then you've got 2 players who are quality enough to do something out there, But again, the big question is, will Willock stay fit? Can he stay fit? These are huge gambles to take, aren't they?
Yeah, Willock's just been so unfortunate with his injury run. Look, if he is fit for a long period of time, he gives you so many options, both in the central midfield and in that forward run. He is quick. He's good on the ball. He does give you really positive running forward with the ball. We saw that Sunday. He gets the ball, runs down that left-hand side, and he runs away from players because he's got that pace.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on, obviously it's going to depend on Eddie. For me, when it comes to the weekend, the front 3 have to be Barnes, Isak and Gordon. I've said that. I think that's the 3rd time. Behind them, that then depends. But if he's going to go a different route, and maybe if he's not going to start Harvey Barnes, which would be in my mind ridiculous, the obvious one is Willock down that left-hand side, and then you bring back that dynamic where you've got both him and Joelinton to be able to interchange and to play off each other, and that's what worked well in the Champions League qualifying season. Those 2 worked brilliantly together in that. In those positions, so that there is an option to do that as well. I don't think Willock works particularly well the opposite side, and likewise Barnes isn't a right-sided player. He's only played a handful of games there. Well, we're talking less than 15, I think. He is a left-sided player. He likes to run down that left line. He likes to come in. He likes to create from there and to score goals from that side. Gordon's the one that's the interchangeable one because he's played a lot more time down that right hand side. But at some point, and I think was it William put in there? People have been talking about Eddie being ruthless. I think he has to be in that forward line. He has to be ruthless and say, you're not providing enough quality from that right hand side, particularly to warrant being in the side. How many assists? How many goals are Murphy and Almiron creating compared to what's coming from the opposite side? It's minimal. I mean, Almiron doesn't create assists. He doesn't create goals for other people. He will score the odd few, but he just doesn't create them. He's not good enough on that side. And so those forward, those wide players, especially when you've got a striker like Isak in the middle, have to create chances for your centre forward. And from that right hand side, they're just not good enough. And that's the ruthlessness for me. That has to change.
Isak, just to finish on this before getting to Out of Toon, Isak must have been, look at these last two games, some of the shit passing that's gone anywhere near, and he must be going, are you fucking winding me up? Like, he really must be. A player of his quality, he's looking going, come on, really? You're taking the piss? But the minute Barnes comes on, you almost see Isak come alive because he knows as a player there that's dynamic and can make those movements and those runs. And I think if you have those three together, I think Isak steps up and goes, right, fucking give me the ball. If Willock's on the pitch, you can find him with that pass. I still remember that pass against Spurs. That's why you need those quality players in. These kind of, cloggers and sloggers. It's okay when you're up against it and you're fighting for every chance, but we're not doing that in games like this. We need to take control of games like this. And the pressure is massively on Eddie Howe. It really, really is. The honeymoon is well and truly over this season, but this window, the board have to back him or he's going to be in trouble. He really, really is. Quick comment there from Danson, said, coming late, having mentioned going in for Trafford again, another goalkeeper. Is that what we need? The answer is no, Dan, we don't. So there was contrasted views on that. Some people said that we're looking at Trafford. We already seem to have about 19 fucking goalkeepers on the book. So we'll definitely not concede if they all stand in the goal mark. But for me, that would be like, taking a shit on somebody's wedding cake, really, wouldn't it? In this transfer window, getting another fucking goalkeeper in, where we're screaming for a right centre back and a right winger. If this club do that, they might as well just go like that and stick their finger up live on fucking Instagram to the rest of the fan base, because you're not listening, you're not tuned in. If Dubravka's gone and Vlachodimos is gone, which is the weirdest deal I've ever seen. I mean, fuck me. This guy spent less time in Newcastle than a Sunderland fan, isn't he? You know what I mean? If he's out the door, and that's them just going to IKEA. Sunderland's a massive club. Don't even have your own IKEA. But if goalkeepers go, I understand the Trafford thing, but surely there's positions that need strengthened more than that, mate, isn't it?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a goalkeeper, but
of course
there are five already. And the Vlachodimos one is mad because, I mean, it's understandable for it was done purely and simply for the PSR. I don't think either party really wanted it. They wanted the deal, but they've only done it to get the PSR move, to get Anderson to go one way, and then they can split the cost. And Newcastle can split the cost of Vlachodimos over 5 years. That's it. That's all it is. I think they'll move him out on loan. Probably Dubravka will go as well. I'm amazed that hasn't happened sooner. I really am amazed they haven't worked harder to move him on, because there are 5 senior goalkeepers at the club. And if you bring in Trafford, that's 6. So those 2 have to go. And that's half the window being spent out trying to move players like that out. It's just mad. It really is. And it's not a position of need. I've seen an awful lot of chatter over the last 24 hours about distribution, about how poor Nick Pope's distribution is. And I understand that argument, because Nick Pope put the ball at his feet. It's not utterly horrendous, but it's just not serviceable at levels you want to get to. He's never going to be in the same conversation as the top goalkeepers in the Premier League. Trafford's not there yet either. You know, he's still young. He's got an awful lot to learn. He's going to come in and be the bench while he learns and continues to grow. And maybe in a year or two, he's the replacement. But it just seems an odd deal to splurge that money now when there are already 700 goalkeepers on the books.
Yeah, John Ruddy starting against Forest is just terrifying, really, isn't it? Terrifying, honestly. But
he's another good lad. Do you know what I mean? But it's
Good Lad FC. That's what we'll change my name to. Good Lad FC.
Yeah. I mean, for his signing, if there were no other goalkeepers and he's the fourth choice, and you want 4 goalkeepers in the squad, he brings experience. He brings a head. But you have one of those in terms of a fourth choice goalkeeper in Gillespie that's going to sit there and do the Scott Carson role and never play.
Oh,
it's
absolutely.
So John Ruddy being that fourth choice, but that for me that only works if Gillespie's not there, and it's a strange one. It is a strange.
I think Ruddy's probably just an Eddie, mate. He's throwing a bone to it, to be fair. But yeah, it is very, very weird. But moving on from the transfers, we will be back through the week for transfers. If anything breaks, we'll give you a reaction on it, and then obviously we'll cover it as well before the window shuts. Is Mark frozen? Is he frozen? You've gone a bit grainy there, Mark. You know, like you're reporting from a war zone. Can you hear me all right? Mark's gone all quagmire, giggity, as you can see there. I don't know if you can see that. He's got a little bit giggity. He's going to leave and come back in, I think, is what he was saying. Something like that, potentially. He's live from Baghdad is Mark. So don't worry, Ray. He'll be back, mate. He'll be back in a minute. I'll stall a little bit till he comes back before we get into the Out of Toon situation. Yeah, but the transfer window is sorry, Anna. I knew all these comments were coming, guys. I beat you to it. Yeah, he's not in the Ukraine, I promise you. The Russians have got Mark. It's George. He did actually look a little bit like what's that? His head's been turned. Trendon Bollock statement. Yeah, I mean the Gordon thing's a weird one, isn't it? He marks in the transfer room. Yeah, he's the super duper stat computer's pulled him in, Joe Litton. But yeah, the Gordon one's a funny one because he's this talk about his head being turned. You can kind of understand why that's coming up because he's just his body language. He just looks so lethargic. Even in the goal, he didn't really celebrate the goal a great deal, did he? But I just think I hope it isn't the case. I really, really do because Gordon is such a good player for us. I think Mark is trying to rejoin again. There he is. Everyone was worried about you, Mark. It was saying that your gear has melted. Says Ray, and watch out for those drones, Mark, as what Ian says. People are starting to think you were going to report from Ukraine there for a minute, mate. They were a bit worried about the background. It is only the kitchen still, I promise, guys. It's not a green screen. He's not in the war zone.
Can I just point out as well, I can't even blame the cat tonight because he's outside. So it's not even that the cat's causing problems. So
he's chewed the wires outside, mate. Yeah, that cat's almost to fucking blame if Ian's still in the comments. Mark has signed for the Toon as a goalie. He's goalie number 20 is what he is. Yeah, happy to do it. Absolutely. But we'll move. I was stalled a little bit to come back there, mate. So we'll move on to the last section tonight, which is Out of Toon, where we talk about everything non-Newcastle United, and normally Out of Toon is all full of crack and smiles and banter, but we are going to start the Out of Toon on a really somber note. Really, you've all seen the news that sadly former England manager Sven-Göran Eriksson passed away. I think he was 76. He was diagnosed with cancer. We all know he came out. He was very vocal about his diagnosis, and very, very vocal about how aggressive it was, and he wouldn't have long left. And we give them a lot of shit and they give us shit back, but Liverpool did a wonderful thing for him when they let him manage Liverpool for a game. He went over to see, I think it was Lazio as well, wasn't it? His former club as well. There's an Amazon documentary about Sven-Göran Eriksson, and it's really, really sad, how quickly this is taking him on. And it's something that's very close to our hearts, Mark. I'm sure a lot of the viewers know that obviously I lost my mum to cancer a couple of years ago now, and it's a horrible fucking disease, and our thoughts are with Sven Sven's family and his friends, mate, at this difficult time.
Yeah, it's just fucking just. Yeah, the words cannot explain how much I hate this disease, and for good
awful.
reason. And it does affect everybody. And when it's weird, but I mean, I've got no, other than the England thing, I've got absolutely no links to Sven whatsoever. And I bawled earlier on, and it is close to my to heart at the moment, because my mum's been going through cancer treatment. Why I mean, I know you guys wouldn't have known this because you didn't say anything, but my mum's been going through it, and she's been in hospital for a month now, having had a couple of operations. So it's very, very close, and it's just, I mean, my thoughts go to his family and friends and his kids, everybody, because it's just such an awful thing. And he just always came across as such a wonderful human being. He's just a genuinely nice guy. And yes, he's had his controversies and things, but
haven't we all? Everyone's had controversy.
Yeah, exactly.
You haven't lived a life if you haven't had some controversy in it at some point. So
he gave us some wonderful moments.
He did.
And that 5-1 is just, thank you, mate. That's really nice of you. And that 5-1 is just, it's etched in there, isn't it? And you can see his face. You can see his happiness on the, on the side of the field. That big beaming smile as the goals were going in. It's just, it's one. He's just he's always, and everybody who's come out today said that they interviewed him, and even some of the local journals that interviewed him just say what a wonderful human being he was to interview. Just genuinely lovely to talk to.
Yeah, real kind of classic guy. Kind of cut from a similar managerial cloth, I think, to Bobby Robson.
Yes,
I think obviously so. Somebody else. Unfortunately, this horrible disease took too soon. And it's just, the sooner we can see a cure for it, the better, really. So, that's just this hope we're all around to see it. Because it's horrible, and I wish it would fuck off somewhere else, is what I'm going to say. That's for you, Alan, in the comments, who was missing my swearing.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
It's well warranted. It's well warranted in that occasion, mate. Well warranted.
Yeah, definitely. If ever there was something that warrants being that level of language aimed in it, the cancer is definitely.
If I could rant that "see you next Tuesday" away, I would do it tomorrow without fucking breaking sweat. But sadly, my powers of rants aren't that strong. If there were, I would do it. I guarantee. I guarantee. You can take that to the bank as well. Yeah, a few of the guys just sharing that with me, Mark, which is great. So moving on to a bit more lighthearted now, guys. I promise you, we'll turn up the lightheartedness now. Erling Haaland, the goal machine, was back in the headlines at the weekend, and it was quite funny because Erling Haaland is everybody's kind of FPL pick, really. I mean, FPL ain't my thing, as you know, Mark. It's your thing. You run the Evermore one. The reason I don't do it, you might call miserable bastard in the comments. Feel free. I'm okay. I'm a big boy. I can take it. I am miserable, but I can take it. But I get stressed enough worrying about my own players rather than worrying about every other fucker's players as well. That's why I don't do it. But Erling Haaland was interviewed after the game. He scored 4 goals. I think he scored, Mark. It was 4 goals he scored.
It was 3.
He scored a hat-trick. Obviously, another match ball from, his career goal count is ridiculous, really. Even though people don't think he's the best player in the world, he's in Madrid struggling. More on him in a minute. But he scored 11 goals, and then the guy after the game interviewed him and said, a lot of us play FPL, and we all captained you except one guy, and he just went, "Oh, well, lucky for him, but I don't really care." Which I just thought was fucking brilliant, to be honest with you, Mark. I love his bluntness and his honesty, Erling Haaland. He's brilliant, man.
No, I didn't triple captain. I sort of hummed and hard, and then forgot and left him as captain. So at least I got his double points. But yeah, and I know plenty that did go down that route, and some are kicking themselves that they've left others. I think was a comment in there as well about leaving Isaac as Oh, bless you. Honestly, there were a few that did the same.
Lucky. I think Rog did as well. He fancied a bit of Isaac magic, maybe. This is why it's stressful, is why I don't do it. But I'll tell you somebody else who wasn't very happy at the weekend, mate, was Trent Alexander-Arnold. So there he is, looking very, very perturbed as he was hooked off by Right Said Fred tribute act on slot in his game live on Sky. And Trent didn't look very happy at all. More on Sky in a second, because that was a humorous situation, wasn't it? We all talked about that. But it's not a good look for Trent, really. I mean, he has been linked to Real Madrid. He was spotted having dinner with Jude Bellingham over in Madrid. What do you think, mate? Could you see Trent fucking off, leaving Liverpool? Maybe using this as an excuse?
It's his last season under contract, isn't it? And Liverpool have got big ones because I think Salah, Trent, and Van Dijk all end their contracts this season. So it could happen. And he just looked. I mean, it was a petulant child, wasn't it? Coming off and sulking on the bench, and then trying to pull him to one side. And honestly, just. Yeah, you can be grumpy getting taken off, but you're winning a football match. Save your legs. You've got plenty of football to come this season. I think grow up a little bit.
I think you might be right, mate. I think you might very well be right on that one. But I mean, it's not as if Liverpool weren't getting the red carpet treatment at the weekend, because the people didn't know already. So we played Bournemouth at 2:00. We were the game on before Liverpool played, and Sky TV decided to turn into LFC TV, I think, as you banged up there, Mark. We took a little sub count off there because this is what they had as their punditry. Now, to be honest with you, right, I put a fucking complaint in to Ofcom about these motherfuckers, right? I don't know whether actually they'll do anything about it. I hope everyone else has done the same. But look at the state of that. You've got two former Liverpool players, fucking Kenny Dalglish's daughter, who, in my opinion, wouldn't even have that job if it wasn't for her dad. And then I don't know who that other girl is. I can't remember who the fuck she is, but, she's just a bit of a waste of space anyway, isn't she? But, it was purely just biased Liverpool punditry. They talked about Newcastle and Bournemouth for a microcosm of a moment. Carragher was gushing and slavering, not spitting, slavering over Liverpool and Onslaught and all these other people. And you're just sitting there watching it going, people are paying money for this. This is not Liverpool FC. Even Bryn Law, ex-Sky Sports presenter who got binned by them, outed them and said, "Is this just turned into club football now?" And it's so disgusting, isn't it, mate? And when is Sky going to get a hold of this and sort this shit out? Or do they even care?
They don't give a shit. They really don't give a shit. And even, I mean, it's Izzy Christensen that's with them. And even she used to play for Everton. So it's all Liverpool connections. So,
Izzy and calls that.
Well, look, I'm not going to that point. But look, the whole thing is you've got 4 teams played that were live on television that day.
Yeah.
There's not one representative in the studio from Newcastle, from Bournemouth, or from Brentford. And that's the criminal one. Yes, you're coming live from Anfield for Liverpool's first game this season. Fine. I understand having Carragher on. I can understand having Redknapp on to a point. Where's the Brentford representation? What happened to there always used to be sort of one that had an association with Ian.
Yeah, they used to do that really well.
And it's just, it does baffle. And it all plays into this. It's all down to, we don't care about anybody else. We only care about the perceived big six. We don't give a shit about the lower sides because there's just no point. Nobody's going to watch. No, I'm sorry, but I want input from both. I want somebody from Brentford to say what they understand, because Jamie Carragher doesn't watch every single Brentford game. Christensen doesn't watch every single Brentford game, and Jamie Redknapp hasn't got a clue what day of the week it is. So I want somebody to give balance to that, and they just don't. It is so one-sided against every side outside of that top 6. It's unbelievable.
It's pathetic. Great shout by Dean. He always tunes into the Toon review commentary, which is brilliant, by the way, with Paul and Billy. Watch that if you don't already, guys. Way better than Sky and TNT. The lads could teach them a few fucking things or two. I'll tell you that. Especially you, Jermaine Genius. Cough, cough. Not getting into that one. Maybe about workplace conduct, potentially.
It's funny how quickly his tune changed, isn't it? Without getting into detail, but he went from one day saying, "I'm not happy and this is in the hands of a legal team," to yeah, I'm really sorry for things that I've done. Well, your tune changed rather quickly there, Jermaine.
Well, quite ironic, isn't it? Because he will be chasing coin because he hasn't got a fucking job. So he will be on that. Yeah, I agree with you, Ray. Yeah, well, definitely. They're only interested in elite clubs, is what they call. Absolutely, it is fucking embarrassing. And there was something else that was quite embarrassing as well. Actually, nice little segue there. I love the segue. You saw Brighton beat Manchester United at the weekend, which again was just brilliant in itself, really. I will give Goldbridge some respect here. He actually did give Brighton a lot of respect because he just said it was almost inevitable that this was happening again at Manchester United. And Manchester United are not a good team. Haven't been for the past 2 years, don't look it still. But Brighton look really bright and vibrant, and they've signed really well. Obviously, João Pedro got the winner. And you may have not seen this. Brighton's own social media called this out, which I thought was hilarious. So obviously everybody ran to celebrate with João Pedro with the winner, including Lewis Dunk, who then got up and had the worst fucking cramp you've ever seen in your life. This poor bastard went down like a sack of shit, holding his leg. And I love the fact that Brighton just took the piss out of that, because that's the kind of club content I want on social media, Mark. I think that's brilliant. That.
Perfect. That's what it's designed for, isn't it? It is, have a bit of a laugh with your players and stuff. It was funny. If you go and watch that clip, because he goes belting over, jumps in, and as he stands up, you see it. You see him cramp. His hand goes to his leg, and he just goes thud. It's brilliant, and it is the kind of thing social media should be used for. And well done to Brighton for that, because that was really, really well done.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Dean thinks Brighton might get top 4 this season. I'll tell you what, it's a show.
Thereabouts. I think they're a shoo-in for Europe this season, whether that's through the cups or through the league. But I think they will be the surprise top 4 challenger this season. I think Newcastle, Villa, Brighton this season. I really think they could do really well, because I think they're probably missing a striker, but I can't remember when Ferguson's sort of due back to give them some more depth in that sort of area. But João Pedro, if he continues to develop and score goals, Danny Welbeck suddenly decided that he's a cracking Premier League footballer again. They could really do some damage this season.
I don't know what Danny Welbeck's drinking. Get me a glass. Fuck me.
Amen.
Clock, didn't it, be fair? But a little bit of international football actually, Mark, now. So this will certainly set some tongues wagging in the comments, whoever's still with us that haven't gone to sleep already. So Mason Greenwood looks like you may be switching allegiance from England to Jamaica. Now, this is an interesting one, because can you switch allegiance when you're probably not going to get another cap for as long as any manager with any kind of self-respect won't select you? He's obviously over in Marseille, scoring goals. Ironically, a lot of his former teammates have been celebrating the fact he's scoring goals on Instagram. A lot of their fans have actually taken to social media to voice their disgust about obviously what Mason Greenwood was allegedly accused of. We always got to say that to cover our arse. But Mason Greenwood to Jamaica. I mean, Steve McLaren, I'm sure will get the best out of that player because he's such a good manager. But what is your take on that, Mark, in terms of Greenwood to Jamaica? Just quickly, because we won't spend too much time on that one.
I mean, so if he doesn't play for England again, that's fine. I think there will be a bit of uproar from Jamaica and some of the players as well if he is
possibly
brought in to play for them. But what gets me, he's played for England, and therefore he shouldn't be eligible to transfer his association to another country.
He's played competitively, isn't he? It's not like it's just friendlies. He's played in competitive games, isn't he? He's not checked that quickly. Yeah, because if he's not played in competitive games, it might not have been competitive games he's played in, potentially.
Well, I know
Michael Antonio did the same thing. Michael Antonio did the same thing, didn't he? He played for England. There was only a friendly.
I was going to say, I think Antonio only played a friendly. Let me just check. So, he'd only played the one game. Which was a nation. Well, fair enough. It was a Nations League game, so we'll ignore that.
Well, there he goes. It's not a proper game, so he can transfer over, which he probably will do. To be fair,
that's fair. I thought he played more, to be honest with you, but I remember he got. It was after that Iceland game, actually, wasn't it? He got dropped because he was there was shenanigans going on in the team hotel, if I remember rightly. It was him and Phil Foden, I think, got dropped.
Yeah, with them two girls, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's not like we didn't see the writing on the wall. Anyway, that's a different story. But no, I mean, look, if he wants to go and play elsewhere, if they're willing to give him the time, let him get on with it. I just
he'll get goals because the kid can play, but he's a class A wanker, isn't he? So let's just move away from him. It's probably the best way to describe him. And talk about somebody who's got a bit more international class about them, and that is the main man, Fabian Schär. So Fabian Schär is retired from Switzerland after having a pretty good tournament, to be fair. I think he's had 80-odd caps or something like that. And I wonder if this is a sign of him concentrating more on getting fit for Newcastle, a bit like Shearer did all them years ago when he jacked in England. What do you think about that, Mark? Do you think that's Fabi concentrating on his club career and trying to get the most out of the last maybe 2 or 3 years that he's got?
I think that there's a few. There's a couple of younger sort of Swiss defenders knocking around, aren't there? And I think he spent a little bit of time when he wasn't starting. He got himself back into that side, particularly for this Euros as well, and he's played really, really well. I think he'll be a big miss for them actually, because he just is a level of assuredness at the back that he gives them, but. Maybe this is to give him a little bit more longevity in his club career, and if this extends his club career by an extra year or two, it's not like he's had the horrific injuries that Shearer had, which is the reason why he knocked England on the head. But maybe it does give him an extra season or two where he can focus on his income then for the rest of his life and to sort of look after his family and stuff. So maybe that's the thinking, but he's been a cracking servant for them. He really has.
Absolutely, mate. Well, speaking from a player who's kind of coming towards the end of his career, the players right at the start of their career. So we said earlier on, Erling Haaland's on fire again, smashing goals. Kylian Mbappe's not really hit the heights going to Real Madrid. He scored in his debut against Atalanta in that Super Cup game, but he's not really done it over 2 La Liga games. But one player who did score his first Real Madrid goal was the Brazilian boy wonder, Endrick. Now, Endrick is such a talented player, Mark. I don't know if you know this about Endrick. So not only has he got pace, has he got skill, has he got ability, but he's also got a bit of a sixth sense. And I don't mean in front of goal. Apparently, he can speak to fucking ghosts, because this is what Endrick said. Now, I couldn't tell whether this was fake or not, but we thought, fuck it, we'll talk about it anyway. Before the match, Bobby Charlton and Pele wished me luck, Endrick said about his goal against Valladolid. Now, I kind of want to say that it is fake, but given how batshit crazy some of these modern day footballers are, Mark, I'm not sure if this is. What do you have any words for Endrick? Apart from there's Bruce Willis.
I looked at it. I was like, I'm sure both of them have died recently. I mean, the last 2 years, isn't it? And it's just so strange. And I didn't. I'll be honest. I didn't go and look to see whether I could find anything else.
No, it did catch my eye.
Whether or not it's just, I think a bit of a Mickey take up that somebody's mocked up or something. But it's just so bizarre.
Yeah, I think you might have been on the white powder here, to be fair. I'd certainly give a drugs test to him straight afterwards, to be fair. Absolutely. And a great comment there from Dean. Yeah, he's not very big. He's a medium, but very good, mate. Very, very good. Somebody is still sharp tonight, right? We're coming to the last 2 here, and we'll get stuck in them. So there's back to the Premier League for these. So, again, talking about pushing for the top 4, we seem way off at the moment. Spurs are looking to get there. But obviously, there's a bit of bad, unfortunate luck for big Ange Postecoglou, who I've got a lot of time for, as you know. Dominic Solanke got injured, and he had a press conference about it. But I just love the way Ange handles these things. And he did say, think of the poor old manager, mate. Forget the player. What about me? I've lost my key striker a week after buying him. I need an arm around me, mate. Never mind an arm around him. So I thought that was a class touch by Ange Postecoglou. I do like the guy, mate.
I think he's quite normal, and I think a lot of that level is very much, about self-preservation and not saying things that others would say, and I quite like that, and the fact that he's just willing to say stuff that the rest of us would probably say. Do you know what I mean? And he always comes across. He's a bit dour at times, and He just comes across as a genuinely nice guy as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, I know the Celtic fans had loads of time from him as well. As Ray says that the bloke's got a dry sense of humour. I think he's brilliant. I really do. The judges, I do hope Ange stays that way and doesn't do a Klopp. Yeah, me too. I hope he does keep that. He seems to have had that in his whole career like that. So I don't think he will change, to be fair. He's it's taken him this far, George. Hopefully he won't change. But there was another manager who's had to say some home truths. And to be honest with you, it was after some pretty appalling scenes. So this was Sean Dyche, the Everton manager. Now, if you haven't seen this already, the Everton fan base, who I'm trying to think of the easiest way I can describe them without causing any bad comments in the video. But even if I just say the word Everton, I'll probably get some abuse by most of them because they just seem to want to abuse everybody, including their own fucking players, because they were getting the train back from a game and they all queued up to give them shit and shout at them, 80 fucking grand a week, you mate, you fucking prick, and was shouting and blowing the odds at the players and all that. And the players were kind of walking past. Some of the players weren't sure whether to just get their head down and walk away. I mean, Jordan Pickford, obviously, who is a Mackham and probably a bit of a chava, realised that these lot looked like they were ready to rumble, so he fucked off to the train quite quickly with a smirk on his face. Some of the more foreign players try to fist bump and then realise, actually, this guy wants to smack me in the face, not fist bump. So then they disappeared quite quickly. And then just in that moment there where you want to be calm, you want to be professional, up rocks Neil Maupay and tells him to fuck off. which was fucking box office, to be honest with you. And there it is there, yeah. And then he actually posted about it, and he said, imagine another job where it's normalised to get abuse like this. Well, to be fair, Neil, try probably every single retail job out there, mate, to be fair. They're having to deal with people coming in and stealing off, and never mind getting abuse, mate. So, just pull the privilege out of your arse for a second. But going back to what Sean Dyche says, and Sean Dyche said this, it's a weird thing in football when people say, why don't you go out and buy someone? And I'm like, what do you mean? There is no money. As if as a manager, I don't want to buy someone unless someone tells me something different. This is what we've got. And I think it's a bit of a reality check for the Scouse Mackhams that are Everton, Mark, isn't it? Because they've circled around the drain in the Premier League for years. Newcastle did it, Villa did it, Sunderland did it. You know, sooner or later, you go down that plug hole and you fuck off down to the Championship. And if you're lucky, you get back up. And if you're unlucky, you end up there for way, way longer than you should do. And there's bigger clubs in Everton that have been in there for a long time. I'm talking about Leeds United, I'm talking about Nottingham Forest, Champions League winning Nottingham Forest were in there for so long. Blackburn Rovers won the Premiership, they can't get back up. So Everton are not safe from this, regardless of how great they think they are, because they've got a new super duper stadium. But I've got no time for that kind of abuse from fans, Mark. Voice your opinion, but I think that's a bit unnecessary, isn't it?
Yeah, look, be upset, be not happy with what you're seeing. Call out poor performances. Give players. It's difficult to do from the stands. It's difficult to do in that position, but to give them criticism, to be unhappy, I completely understand that, and I don't mind that. It's exactly what we do. We talk about it, but we don't abuse them. We might say they've played shit. We might say, might say they're not very, very good. For a particular level, but we don't stand and we don't abuse them and we don't give them that level, and that's just, it's just, for me, just wrong. And in that position, there's just no need to do to that level. And Everton are what they are. They're not a very good football club at the moment.
No, haven't been for a long time either, mate. Haven't been for a long time.
They've been severely mismanaged. Is it Maziri that's the guy that's owned them has been an absolute shit show. They're a mess, and they're going to move into a new stadium, and they could do a Sunderland and move into a brand new stadium in the Championship, and we don't get to hear their walk-on music in the Premier League straight away. How sad. But yeah, could do without said cause for a couple of seasons. Being guaranteed now, I said that they'll go down and Watford will come up and they play the freaking same thing. But you're right, they've circled the drain for so long. Sooner or later it catches up, and if they can't spend and if they can't replace players, they're going to really struggle. And when you're abusing players like that, the player's going to show. Yes, they're going to have an element of professional pride, but are they going to really fight for you as a club if you're going to go and abuse them like that after a couple of games of the season? I wouldn't.
No.
Couldn't give a shit about you. You're going to be like that.
But they ran anti-Gordon our town, didn't they? And I must say, you know, Everton's a club with a lot of tradition, and if they do get relegated, I will shed a tear of laughter. So that's how I'm going to end this episode, guys. So thank you so much for watching this week's What's Going On. It's been a great show as always. We really appreciate all the comments. It always helps the episode flow. Me and Mark really enjoy getting stuck in and chatting to you guys. So thank you very much for all the love in the comments. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. If you haven't already, recommend us to family and friends. Help get us to the 9,000K mark. It was 9K mark, even 9,000K would be great. 9K mark as quick as possible. So I've got a great prize for that and an even better one for 10K as well. So keep recommending us, guys. We're channel's growing quicker and quicker every single month. So it's brilliant. We love to see it. Have a great evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. We'll be back with a match preview for Forest and the post-match analysis after hopefully Newcastle get a win in the cup, and then we'll be back for Premier League action at the weekend. Have a belt, everyone. We'll see you later.
Take care, guys.